Evening, everybody. My name is Jason Greer, and currently I'm just doing this at the park. I was unable to get the five people, mainly because I'm actually doing a bunch of store transfers right now, and going to a new city is kind of hard to get, different people in a certain area at a certain time. But my 5 minute presentation is basically going to be on the use of emergency response guide in the realm of the DOT placards and how to identify each one, and the broad overview of identifying each different classification inside the placard itself. I will get into individual placards later during either my 10 or my 25-minute presentation, but the main thing I wanted to get around is the basic 9 classifications you can see on trucks or any transportation vehicles that will use these placards and must be used by Department of Transportation requirements. The DOT placards that I am trying to identify are going to be on a lot of the times large trailers. They can be used on compressed gas trailers. You see like the helium tanks, and there's 20 to 30 of them. Those are the type of vehicles that need to be identified through the Department of Transportation. Uh, you'll see on the back of the trucks, a lot of times they're going to be the diamond shaped. They could be a multitude of colors. They can be green, yellow, blue, red. They can be striped. They can be half colored. But the broad overview is they're going to identify themselves on what it actually is inside the vehicle. A lot of the times as well, uh, you could identify them by the numbers that are used. Most commonly, you'll see on the road is a placard with the identification number of 1203. Long story short, it is gasoline. You'll see those a lot of the gas stations. A lot of these numbers are basically used to identify what the chemical is during any type of spill or mitigating hazard. This ERG book, Emergency Response Guide. It is short for ERG. They do have a booklet that they do change every about 2 to 3 years, but they also have an application that you could use on an Android and iOS device. This can easily identify what first responders would roll up to. A lot of the times as well, they can identify what is being hauled mainly by the shape and the length of the vehicle, but it does help to actually know what the placard is. You can easily narrow down what you need to do by just looking at the chart itself. The main overview what I'm trying to go today is going to be on just the 1 through 9 mitigating hazards you can have for the placards. There are subsections in each one of the placards. However, I don't have that much time, so I'm just going to go over a few of them. The first one you'll see on the diamond shapes is actually going to be on these charts right here. The first one you're actually going to see up at top, which is actually an explosive. A lot of the times you'll see mainly fireworks. You don't see that much on the road, mainly because of the amount of pounds you have to transport to use it. But they do carry it around sometimes. A lot of times what you'll see as well is the gases. This one here, a lot of the times it's going to be the oxygen. These would be the helium tanks, the basic oxidizers that do foster the use of flames. So if this would explode, this would be a catastrophe. Basically, not something you want to be a part of. The third one, which unfortunately my printer was going out of ink, but it is going to be the flammable liquids. These would include paint, gasoline, kerosene, alcohol, some more line of that, etc. The fourth one is going to be the flammable solids. You can easily identify these. A lot of times it'd be car fires. The aluminum engines, which if you have that on fire and you throw water on it, it would actually be a catastrophe. It would explode. So this is why a lot of times when you see car fires, they either drown it out with water or just go underneath the car because they just want to mitigate the spread of the fire and just let it burn out. The fifth one will be any of the oxidizers, organic peroxides. A lot of these chemicals, they really don't be on the road that much. Number 6 is actually the toxic chemicals. These would be the poisonous gases that you would not want to be. If you see this on a spill, I would highly get away as fast as you can. Number 7 would be radioactive. A lot of times you will see this coming out of nuclear plants. However, 9 times out of 10, they actually don't need to placard themselves. They are one of the only few where they are allowed to not put their placard on it because they are actually under the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy actually has its own rules in the aspect of they don't want terrorists to understand where they're going, what kind of materials they are carrying, and actually they do have their own SWAT team that would follow them. So if anything would have happened, they would immediately go to the SWAT team, and the SWAT team would mitigate any hazards within the police departments, and in actuality, they're not even allowed to be pulled over. So if they do get pulled over, the drivers are not allowed to talk to anybody, and it'd be the SWAT team behind them that would do all the talking. Number 8 would be any kind of corrosive. These would be a lot of the chemicals that would be coming from waste plants. And the last one, which doesn't really have a placard, mainly because it is miscellaneous. These would be used for basically everything else that doesn't have a placard. And it is really hard to kind of remember all these in order. So, weirdly enough, the fire department talked to the people that are putting the ERG together, and they have come up with their own acronym to remember these things. It does change basically from any class you go to any other one. I've heard a number of different acronyms to remember these classifications, but a lot of times you'll hear firefighters basically spell out the acronym as every good firefighter obeys the rules carefully most of the time. So you got every explosive, good gases, flammable liquids is fire, fighter is the flammable solids, obeys is the oxidizer, the toxic, radioactive rules, and the corrosive carefully, and miscellaneous basically most of everything else. So it's every good firefighter obeys the rules carefully most of the time. It is important to understand with these placards that they do have limits. The minimum limit to use this placard is over 1,000 pounds. So if any one of these chemicals is under the amount of 1,000 pounds, they do not need to placard their item. It is deemed safe to transport anything under 1,000 pounds. And if they would use 2 different chemicals or 2 different any kind of elements, they would actually just use the gross of both chemicals and they'd identify both at the same time. Again, this is just a basic overview of each one of the placards. I will go into depth a little bit more. My background is in fire prevention, so I do love these kind of placards, mainly because I am the guy that would drive around and see the placards and immediately look it up on my phone to find out what it is and basically get away from it as fast as I can when I notify what it is. But thank you, and hopefully I will be able to get 5 people next time. I will be located in Arizona and possibly another state by week 10, so we'll see how that goes. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.